Hello, you're watching Gravitas and I'm Shreya Upadhyay. Let's get started. Tonight, a look at the ongoing Iran-US confrontation. Ayatollah Khamenei skipped the annual Air Force commanders' meet for the first time in 37 years. What does it mean? And is the diplomacy headed anywhere, or is it just posturing from both sides until the real deal? We decode it tonight. Also, the big question on Gravitas today. The contours of the trade deal have been announced, but can the mercurial, transactional and unpredictable Donald Trump still pull the plug on the India-US trade pact? And a look at Bangladesh's upcoming elections. Where are the women? That's the question we are asking on Gravitas tonight. West Asia remains in turmoil. Even as US and Iran held the first round of talks last week, America is massing warships and air power and has encircled Iran from multiple sides. The clock is ticking for a possible escalation. For the first time in 37 years, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei decided to skip a major annual meeting with the Air Force commanders. The signal seems clear. Iran is not taking any chances regarding his safety. Earlier reports suggested that he moved to a fortified underground bunker owing to heightened risks of a US strike. America has considerable military presence in the region. Towards the west of Iran, US has multiple bases in countries such as Turkey, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar. In the south, the US military prowess got a major boost by the arrival of the naval fleet led by USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier group. President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to this aircraft carrier after the talks in Oman is being seen as a veiled message to Tehran. But remember, this is not at all that US is eyeing strategic inroads in Iran's northern neighbors, Armenia and Azerbaijan. The American Vice President J.D. Vance has reached Armenia and he will visit Azerbaijan subsequently to focus on trade and investment. He will also seek to advance a 43-kilometer road and rail economic corridor that would open a new east-west trade route bypassing Russia and Iran. Meanwhile, Israel's role in this situation cannot be ignored. Remember, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with Trump on Wednesday to emphasize on the need for pushing Iran to limit its ballistic missiles and end its support for outfits like Hamas and Hezbollah. As per reports, Israeli defense officials recently told their American counterparts that they are willing to strike Iran alone if necessary. They made it clear that Iran's ballistic missile program represents an existential threat to Israel and outlined options if Iran crosses the red line. But Iran is digging in its heels. In a pre-recorded message ahead of the anniversary of the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Khamenei called on his compatriots to show resolve against foreign pressure. His advisor, Ali Larijani, will visit Oman on Tuesday.
National power is less about missiles and aircraft and more about the will and steadfastness of the people. Thank God you have shown your resolve and determination in various events. show it again, and frustrate the enemy.
Speaking with the media after talks with the US, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi affirmed that his country is not scared by the US military formation in West Asia. In fact, Araghchi warned the US that Iran will strike its bases if it's attacked. Iran has linked the possibility of diluting highly enriched uranium to lifting off all sanctions on the country. Araghchi's warning, remember, assumes significance as Iran has the largest stockpile of ballistic missiles in West Asia. The arsenal comprises multiple missiles, which have a range of 2,000 kilometers. This implies that most of US military bases in the region come under striking range of its missiles. For instance, Sejil and Khorramsher, which have a range of 2,000 kilometers, can strike as far as the US base of Camp Lemonia in Djibouti. Other prominent bases like Saudi Arabia's Prince Sultan Air Base and Jordan's Muwafaq Salti Air Base also come within Iranian range. On the other hand, IRGC has escalated its psychological warfare campaign as well. An AI-generated propaganda video depicts a catastrophic attack on the USS Abraham Lincoln. This video shows Iran's Fatah hypersonic missile splitting the massive carrier cleanly into two, sending F-35 fighter jets and crew members into a fiery sea. Now, Iran is also gearing up for a possible ballistic missile test as it issued multiple NOTAMs, closing airspace east of Tehran in the Semnan province. This is being perceived as a sign of Iran seeking to activate its desert bases like Semnan military complex amid chances of a confrontation with the US. In September 2025, in September 2025, reports indicated that Iran conducted a secret ballistic missile test in Semnan. Besides Semnan, the country has underground missile bases in provinces like Kermanshah. Tensions are palpable on the streets of Iran. In Tehran's Palestine Square, a giant billboard has been put up, displaying a map of potential targets in Israel's Tel Aviv. It carries a warning message reading, "You start, we finish." Although no breakthrough was achieved in Oman regarding the nuclear issue, a second round of talks will be held in the near future. However, looking at their military posturing, it seems that both sides are now preparing for the worst. Just 3 days ahead of the high-stakes polls in Bangladesh, women have taken to the streets. In Dhaka and across the country, women's and human rights groups have rallied against what they call a misogynistic politics and hate speech, directly targeting the Islamist party, Jamaat-e-Islami, and its leadership. These protests are organized by the International Women's Day Celebration Committee, a platform of 61 women's and human rights organizations. Agitations were held in front of the National Press Club in the capital. Simultaneous demonstrations were also staged in 50 districts outside of Dhaka. At the heart of this outrage were recent comments by Jamaat-e-Islami chief Amir Shafiqur Rahman, who described working women as being equivalent to prostitutes. In his social media post, which now stands deleted, the Jamaat chief said that women are not fit for leadership positions, adding that women are pushed out of home in the name of modernity. Protesters condemned the remarks as degrading, dangerous, and a blatant attempt to justify discrimination under the cover of religion. The groups also criticized the Yunus government and the Election Commission for their silence, saying that misogynistic statements during an election campaign undermines democratic values and women's safety. They're also demanding immediate action against any party or candidate engaging in misogynistic speech and called for an end to the use of religion in politics. But with just days to go for the general election in Bangladesh, the protest was not just symbolic, it was numerical. Bangladesh, remember, is home to an estimated 23.7 million working women. They are employed across agriculture, garments, education, healthcare, services, banking, retail, hospitality, and domestic labor. Activists say that these women form a powerful electoral bloc that can no longer be taken for granted. To put it into further context, let's tell you how 78 women are participating in this year's parliamentary elections. Experts say this only underscores how far the country still lags in ensuring gender parity in politics. Of these 78 women candidates, 61 have been nominated by 30 political parties, while 17 are independents. While women make up half the population, they clearly account for only 3.93% of the 1,981 candidates in the race. Now, in the wake of the anger boiling on the streets, Jamaat has promised to include women in the cabinet if they win. But the fact remains that the party has not fielded a single woman candidate in these upcoming elections. Such openly misogynistic rhetoric risks alienating women voters, including those who have traditionally supported religion-based parties in Bangladesh. The current wave of protests could shrink Jamaat-e-Islami's appeal among women and push female voters toward the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, who could stand to gain. The 12th February parliamentary election has already been transformed by the return of the BNP acting chairperson Tariq Rahman after 17 years of exile. His homecoming has turned the vote into a referendum on governance, democratic restoration, and the future direction of the country. Despite the personal tragedy of losing his mother, Khaleda Zia, who was the former Prime Minister, Tariq Rahman has moved quickly from mourning to mobilization. He has taken his campaign directly to the voters, touring the northern districts, addressing large divisional rallies and reconnecting with his party's roots, including a visit to his father, Ziaur Rahman's grave, for the first time in nearly 2 decades. With Sheikh Hasina's Awami League banned, the BNP and Jamaat are the two most powerful political forces that are left in Bangladesh at the moment. One of these parties are likely to chart the way forward for Bangladesh, with both promising different future directions. The anger over misogyny and religious politics may quietly translate into electoral consequences. A shift in women's votes away from Jamaat and toward the BNP could alter the future of Bangladesh. The global shadow war is intensifying from Moscow to Dubai, from Kiev to Tehran, and from Tel Aviv to the entire West Asia. In the latest sign of a rising covert conflict, Russia says that it has arrested and extradited a key suspect in the shooting of one of its top military intelligence officers. The arrest comes amid a series of targeted attacks, assassinations, and counterintelligence operations, all pointing to a widening spy war linked to the Ukraine conflict and West Asia tensions. Let's break it down for you. Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, says that the main suspect in the shooting of the Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev has now been taken into custody. The suspect, Lyubomir Korba, was arrested in Dubai just hours after the attack, and he was extradited back to Russia with the help of the authorities in UAE. According to Russian investigators, Korba ambushed the deputy chief of Russia's military intelligence agency in the stairwell of his apartment building in Moscow. He allegedly fired 3 shots at close range, hitting the general in the arm, the leg, and the chest. Alexeyev survived the attack and remains under medical care after undergoing surgery. But Russian authorities say that the weapon that was used was a silenced Makarov pistol, which was recovered from the scene. They claim forensic tests are now underway. Moscow has directly blamed Ukraine for this attack. Russian officials say that Korba was acting on the instructions from Ukrainian intel services. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has described this shooting as a terrorist act that was aimed at disrupting peace efforts. This incident happened just a day after talks involving Russia, Ukraine, and the US concluded in Abu Dhabi, ending with a prisoner exchange but no clear breakthrough. Ukraine, however, has denied any involvement. Kiev says that the shooting may be an internal Russian matter. Investigators say that Korba did not act alone. A male accomplice has been arrested in Moscow. A female suspect is believed to have fled to Ukraine. Russian agencies say they are now hunting for the masterminds behind this attack. State television has aired footage showing Korba being escorted off a plane by security agents under tight security guard. President Vladimir Putin has publicly thanked the UAE leadership for assisting in this arrest. But remember, this attack is not an isolated incident. It is part of a growing pattern. Over the past 2 years, several senior Russian military officers have been killed or targeted near Moscow. In December, Lieutenant General Fanir Savarov was killed in a car bombing. Earlier, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik died in a similar attack. In 2024, General Igor Kirillov was killed in an explosion outside his apartment. Now, some of these attacks were later claimed by Ukrainian intelligence, but others remain disputed. Together, they point to a systematic campaign targeting Russia's military leadership. At the same time, Moscow is believed to have carried out covert operations inside Ukraine as well. Kiev says that Russian agents have targeted Ukrainian commanders and intelligence officers. President Volodymyr Zelensky himself has allegedly survived multiple assassination plots. Former intelligence chief Kirillov Budanov has also said that he was targeted. This is no longer just a conventional war. It is a shadow war being fought in the streets, the stairwells, and safe houses. And this covert conflict is not limited to Eastern Europe. In Iran, authorities say they have neutralized a Mossad-linked terror cell in Tehran. Iranian media reports that the ringleader, Sadiq Ashtari, was trained by Israeli intelligence in Iraqi Kurdistan. He's accused of leading attacks on security targets in the Iranian capital. Tehran says the cell was dismantled and weapons were seized. Israel has not commented on these claims so far. But this fits into a long-running intelligence battle between Iran and Israel involving cyber attacks, assassinations, and sabotage. So what we are witnessing is a globalization of covert warfare. From Moscow to Tehran, from Kiev to Tel Aviv, intelligence agencies are increasingly using targeted killings and proxy networks to weaken their rivals without triggering full-scale wars. But the strategy comes with serious risks. Each attack raises the chances of retaliation. Each retaliation pushes conflicts closer to open confrontation. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Russia says that its forces have captured more villages in northeastern Ukraine. Moscow believes that military pressure will strengthen its position in future peace talks. But the core dispute over occupied territory remains unresolved. President Donald Trump has now given both sides a June deadline to end the war. Whether diplomacy can succeed while assassinations continue remains highly uncertain. But the message is clear. Until the war ends, the shadow war will continue in the dark. And coming up on Gravitas, Keir Starmer is in a spot as the Epstein files rattle the UK government. With his communications aide resigning today, all eyes are on what Prime Minister Starmer says to his party leaders today. And Israel is not just changing its policies in West Bank, it is reportedly also changing its geography, authority and control. Details coming up in just a bit. Also on the show, India's Rafales are about to hit harder as New Delhi and Paris fast-track major defense deals. We tell you all about it on Gravitas tonight. A barrage of Russian drones and missiles have killed at least 5 people in cities across Ukraine. This includes a 10-year-old boy. Ukraine is also hitting Russia's energy facilities as the fierce fighting intensifies on ground. Moscow says Washington is unprepared to implement what it proposed during the Alaska talks. Here's our report for more details.
Russia is unleashing record air strikes, battering Ukraine's power grid amid punishing winter. Zelensky claims Moscow has launched more than 2,000 attack drones, 1,200 guided aerial bombs and 116 missiles of various types across Ukrainian cities in the last week. These are the images from Odessa. Kyiv claims Iranian-made drones have pummeled the southern port city, igniting fires and damaging a gas pipeline.
We
first heard the sound of a Shahed drone and then the hit, then a second one. The gas pipe was ruptured and a car caught fire. It took about 5 to 7 minutes for the gas to dissipate. My car was also damaged.
Farther north, Kharkiv has come under heavy fire after a drone attack. Ukrainian authorities claim Russian assault has killed several civilians. The intensified airstrikes come even as Ukraine endures one of its coldest winters in years, with temperatures falling to -20 degrees. The fierce fighting along the front line is leaving Ukrainian troops outgunned and outnumbered. Russia's effective use of drones is helping its forces maintain a grinding slow-motion advance. Russia has adopted a much more systematic approach of targeting Ukrainian drone teams. Their focus on disrupting and destroying Ukrainian drone logistics, the center of gravity of the Ukrainian defense system.
I have a war going on in my head. Who will leave? There will be no order anyway. They are now taking us out of the Donetsk region, then they will go further. That's what I think. Now we will give up Donetsk region, they will settle there, and then they will have the opportunity to go further, much further.
Dream, of course, that the war will stop. All our military guys will return to their home, to their parents, to their loved people. And that we will not be the same, but to live same happily as we lived before the full scale.
Ukraine is also striking back. Over the weekend, it hit energy facilities in Russia's Bryansk Oblast with Neptune missiles. As the fighting rages on, Moscow blames Washington for unable to implement what Trump proposed in Alaska despite several rounds of meetings with Ukraine.
Поэтому здесь вот помимо того, что вроде бы
Besides that, they made a proposal regarding Ukraine and we were ready to accept it, and now they are not. We do not see any bright future in the economic sphere either. The Americans want to take control of all the routes for providing the world's leading countries and all continents with energy resources.
Though Washington is pushing to end the war, Kyiv and Moscow remain at odds over territorial divisions, with Putin pushing for full control of Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region as part of any deal. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Shifting our focus to the UK now, the fallout continues from the Epstein files. Another one of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's aide has resigned just a few hours ago, and political rivals are now questioning the Labour leader's ability to lead the government. Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has stepped down, saying, and I quote, "I have decided to stand down to allow a new number 10 team to be built. I wish the Prime Minister and his team every success." The resignation comes in quick succession of Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, also resigning from his post. McSweeney took the responsibility for advising the nomination of Peter Mandelson as UK Ambassador to the United States. He said, and I quote, "When asked, I advised the Prime Minister to make that appointment. and I take full responsibility for that advice. The domino effect comes just days after Mandelson returned to the spotlight over his personal connection with sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein. Starmer had apologized to Epstein's victims for, quote, believing Mandelson's lies. But the crisis is only intensifying for 10 Downing Street, and the opposition Conservative Party leaders have turned up the heat on the British Prime Minister.
Now we have a government that's focusing purely on its own internal psychodrama. Enough of that. It is time for them to get a grip and start governing the country.
Among locals, the latest crisis evokes a mixed sentiment. While some feel that Starmer will last through his premiership, others have their doubts.
I think it might be a difficult week for him, but I think he probably will survive, yeah.
No, I don't think he'll last his full term. There's too much war going on inside the Labour Party, and I see too many people moving to different parties, especially with the rise of reform.
Well, on Starmer's part, the Prime Minister's spokesperson has just released a statement saying that the Labour leader has no plans to stand aside.
We missed you a lot. Here's some of our friends.
The interim India-US trade pact promises lower tariffs, booming commerce, and a $500 billion buying plan. But behind the joint statements lies a big question: the uncertainty surrounding US President Donald Trump. Mercurial, transactional, and often known for reversing course, could Donald Trump still pull the plug on this deal? And what are the pressure points that could test the latest India-US deal? Well, the interim agreement signals ambition on both sides clearly. India plans to expand purchases of the American goods over 5 years, while Washington has agreed to slash tariffs on a majority of Indian exports from 50 to 18%. India, in return, will reduce duties on US industrial goods and selected agricultural products. While the exact details of the deal remain largely undisclosed so far, the framework and the joint statements are triggering tough questions, with the biggest question mark being energy. Has India quietly promised to stop buying Russian oil? Trump says yes. The joint statement says nothing of the sort. Instead, a separate executive order from Trump warns that the United States will closely track whether India buys Russian oil directly or indirectly. If Washington, and more importantly Donald Trump, is dissatisfied, could the tariffs return to their former rates? India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that oil decisions rest with private companies, not trade negotiators. While just a short while ago, India's Ministry of External Affairs said that the national interest is the guiding factor and the focus is on diversification, fair price and reliable supply.
Our foremost priority is to safeguard the interests of Indian consumers insofar as energy is concerned, to ensure that they receive adequate energy at the right price.
Well, Moscow says that it has received no signal that Indian supplies will stop. Reports suggest that Indian refiners are cautious, but they're not cutting off all flows. So will Trump see this as a red line, or will India take a cue from the European Union and buy Russian oil from third parties? Or will this too, as Donald Trump's executive order warns of indirect purchase, be the deal breaker? Then there's the $500 billion promise itself. Can India realistically meet it? Piyush Goyal says India's expanding economy, massive aircraft orders, energy needs and data infrastructure all make the target available. However, he's also pointed out that the figure is not a binding commitment. So will Trump upset this deal? There are multiple potential deal breakers at the moment. History suggests that both sides will value this partnership and honor this commitment, because the costs of walking away may be far higher than the politics of posturing. From trade deals, let's talk about defense deals. India's Rafales are about to hit harder as New Delhi and Paris fast-track major defense deals. India's air power is entering a new league. India is reportedly working to seal a deal for over 100 Rafale jets. These stealth jets would also get a major boost with the addition of 2 deadly weapon systems. So a blend of deadlier missiles, longer reach and faster strikes. Our next report has more details.
India is moving swiftly to arm its Rafale fighter jets with the Scalp long-range cruise missile and the Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missile. These weapons, designed to strike first and strike deep. The negotiations with France are being accelerated as part of a broader defense push that could also see India clear a massive deal for 114 new Rafale jets. Scalp is the game changer on the ground. Fired from high altitude, it can fly hundreds of kilometers, hugging terrain, evading radar, and smashing hardened targets with surgical precision. Bunkers, command centers, strategic infrastructure. Once launched, there is little warning and even less defense. Meteor dominates the skies, powered by a ramjet engine. It maintains speed deep into combat range, giving Rafale pilots unmatched kill probability against enemy aircraft. Unlike traditional missiles, Meteor doesn't lose energy at the final moment. It hunts relentlessly. Together, Scalp and Meteor turn Rafale into a lethal multi-role predator, capable of air dominance and deep strike missions in a single sortie. This follows the staggering success of Operation Sindoor last year, where Rafales reportedly used Scalp missiles to obliterate terrorist headquarters in Pakistan's Muridke and Bahawalpur with pinpoint precision. The deal for Scalp missiles alone is reportedly estimated at nearly $385 million. Add the potential clearance of 114 Rafale jets, a deal that could run into about $40 billion US. The message is unmistakable. India is investing in deterrence, not symbolism. Timing matters. Regional threats are evolving. Airspace is contested. Precision and speed now decide outcomes, not numbers alone. These upgrades allow India to strike targets without crossing borders, hit first if needed, and control escalation. French President Emmanuel Macron's upcoming India visit adds momentum. Defense ties between India and France are already deep. This phase makes them sharper. For the Indian Air Force, this is not just modernization, it is transformation. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Israel is not just changing its policies in West Bank, it is changing its geography, authority and control. Piece by piece, redrawing the Palestinian map in ways that could permanently alter the future of a Palestinian state. Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a new set of measures that significantly expand Israeli control across the occupied West Bank. The decisions strengthen Israel's enforcement powers, open the door for large-scale land purchases, and accelerate settlement expansion. Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich has described these moves as changes that will fundamentally reshape the legal and civil reality of the territory. To understand this impact, look at this map. Under the Oslo Accords, the West Bank was divided into 3 zones. Area A under full Palestinian administrative and security control. Area B with Palestinian civil authority and shared security responsibility. And Area C, which remains under full Israeli control. Areas A and B together make up roughly 40% of the West Bank. The latest Israeli measures push enforcement powers directly into Areas A and B, areas along designated for Palestinian administration. That marks a major shift. Israel will now expand policing, planning, and regulatory authority inside zones which were meant to serve as the backbone of future Palestinian self-rule. The cabinet has also removed decades-old restrictions that barred Jewish citizens from purchasing land in the occupied West Bank. In cities like Hebron, Israel will transfer control over building permits from Palestinian municipal bodies to Israeli authorities. Until now, remember, the construction in Jewish neighborhoods required both local and Israeli approval under the new system. Israeli authorization alone will suffice. Israel will also assume administrative control over certain religious sites, even when they fall within areas that are officially under Palestinian Authority control. More than 500,000 Israelis now live in settlements and outposts across the West Bank, excluding East Jerusalem. International law considers these settlements illegal. Around 3 million Palestinians live in the same territory which the United Nations and much of the international community reserve for a future Palestinian state. The Palestinian Authority has condemned the measures, calling them a practical implementation of annexation. Hamas has assured and accused Israel, in fact, of advancing a colonial project aimed at absorbing Palestinian land. 8 Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, Qatar, Indonesia, Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey, have all condemned Israel's West Bank moves, and they were also joined by the European Union on this.
The European Union condemns recent decisions by Israel's Security Cabinet to expand Israeli control in the West Bank. This move is another step in the wrong direction.
Israel captured the West Bank in 1967, the war that happened that time, and has steadily expanded settlements since then. Experts say these latest steps and Israel's expanding Jewish settlements in West Bank amount to de facto annexation. By tightening control over more West Bank areas, the map itself leaves no space for a viable Palestinian state. That is the reality now that is taking shape, one policy decision at a time. Well, shifting our focus now, Hong Kong's most prominent pro-democracy figure, media tycoon Jimmy Lai, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison, a punishment that critics say marks the death of press freedom in the city. And it could mean that the 78-year-old will die behind bars. Lai, remember, who's the founder of the now shuttered Apple Daily newspaper, was convicted of sedition and conspiracy to collude with foreign forces. Charges brought under Hong Kong's national security law, a law that was imposed by Beijing back in 2020 after massive pro-democracy protests. The court described Jimmy Lai as the mastermind behind efforts to lobby foreign governments against China. Judges said his actions endangered national security and warranted a severe punishment. Despite granting limited sentence reductions on health grounds, the court has now imposed the harshest penalty yet in a national security case. Lai's family has condemned this ruling, with his daughter Claire calling it heartbreakingly cruel and his son Sebastian describing it as draconian and devastating. They say Lai's health is deteriorating rapidly and more than 4 years in detention, much of it in solitary confinement. Internationally, human rights and press freedom groups have also reacted with outrage. Reporters Without Borders said the curtain has fallen on press freedom in Hong Kong. Human Rights Watch called the sentence effectively a death sentence. Amnesty International described the case as another grim milestone in the city's transformation into a place ruled by fear. Western governments have spoken out as well. Britain's Foreign Secretary said for a 78-year-old man, this is tantamount to a life sentence. Washington has reviewed calls for Lai's release. Donald Trump has said he wants to secure Lai's freedom, and lawmakers say that the case now stands at the center of US-China relations. But Beijing and Hong Kong authorities have defended this ruling. Chief Executive John Lee called the sentence deeply gratifying. Meanwhile, for all the criticism from the West, China's foreign ministry has described the court ruling as legitimate and reasonable. In fact, police officials even said that Lai's health concerns have been exaggerated. Jimmy Lai founded Apple Daily in 1990s. The paper became a powerful voice for democracy and free speech. During the mass protests of 2019, it openly challenged Beijing's authority. And after the strict security law was imposed, Lai was arrested. Apple Daily was forced to shut down. In 2021, as a result, hundreds of journalists lost their jobs. Independent media outlets began disappearing. Now, critics say that Lai's conviction symbolizes Hong Kong's political transformation. From a semi-autonomous global financial hub to a city tightly controlled by Beijing. Opposition parties have dissolved, activists have fled abroad, and dozens remain behind bars. To critics of Beijing, Jimmy Lai's fate has become his warning that dissent in Hong Kong carries a very heavy price. Moving to the United States now, where the latest tranche of documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice is shedding new light on disturbing allegations surrounding the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Among the millions of records made public is a diary entry attributed to a teenage girl who claimed that Epstein fathered her child in 2002 when she was 16 or 17 years old. According to this diary, Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime associate of Epstein, was present at the birth. The entry alleges that the newborn baby was taken from the girl approximately 10 minutes after delivery. The account adds to previously reported claims about Epstein's stated desire to father large numbers of children. In 2019, The Guardian reported that Epstein had discussed plans to impregnate multiple women at the same time and had expressed interest in using genetic engineering and artificial intelligence to create what he described as a super race. According to the New York Times, Epstein told scientists and business associates that his Zorro Ranch, which is nearly 10,000-acre property in New Mexico, was intended to serve as the base for these plans. The ranch, which is located outside Santa Fe, includes a large mansion, a private runway and hangar, and extensive surrounding land. Multiple survivors have testified in court that Epstein sexually abused teenage girls and young women at the ranch over a period of years. While authorities searched several of Epstein's other properties, including homes in New York, Florida, Paris, and the Caribbean, state and local officials have said they are not aware of any federal search being conducted at the New Mexico ranch. In a parallel development, meanwhile, Indian-American guru and wellness author Deepak Chopra was as effusive in his praise for Israel as he was enthusiastic for Jeffrey Epstein to join him in Tel Aviv. He said that Epstein was invited by Israel but did not accept the invitation because he told him that he did not like Israel. 2 years before his arrest in 2019, Epstein had been invited to meet with Deepak Chopra while he was in the country for a speaking engagement at the Menorah Hall. Why Epstein declined that invitation in March 2017 is one of the unanswered questions emerging from the latest documents that were released by the DOJ. The files present a contradictory and often unclear picture of Epstein's relationship with Israel and with his senior Israeli figures, including former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Those questions have fed into broader claims promoted by some commentators in Washington. They claim that Epstein may have had links to a foreign intelligence service. According to the newly released material, a confidential informant told the FBI that Epstein was not hostile to Israel and was in fact believed to be working on its behalf. The FBI report from the Los Angeles field office dated October 2020 states that the source had become convinced that Epstein was co-opted Mossad agent. U.S. authorities have not publicly substantiated that claim, and no charges or findings have been made to support it thus far. At a time when U.S. President Donald Trump has come under fire for his anti-immigration crackdown, Republican Congressman Brandon Gill has now stirred a row after claiming that parts of his home state, Texas, are undergoing Islamization. During an interview with Real America's Voice, Brandon Gill, who represents Texas in the U.S. House of Representatives since 2024, claimed that mass Islamic migration is killing the America that we know. Elaborating further, he said that his constituents are hearing about mosques coming up near land which they have owned for generations. The congressman also cited them as alleging a huge presence of Muslims in Dallas. He stated that locals going to malls feel like they are in Pakistan. Gill expressed concern over the transformation of communities and culture. Remember, immigrants make up close to 23% of Dallas's population, and the state of Texas has one of the largest Muslim populations in the U.S. And this is not the first time that Gill has made such remarks. A few days earlier as well, he stated that Islam was imported to the U.S. via a suicidal immigration system. He cautioned that importing radical Islam will destroy America like it is allegedly destroying Europe now. Recently, he introduced a bill to ban the immigration of Somalians to the U.S. for 25 years. During the campaign trail in 2015, Trump had advocated a ban on the entry of all Muslims into the U.S. During his first presidential term, he had signed an executive order banning people from 7 Muslim-majority nations, including Iran and Iraq, from entering the U.S. Since coming to power last year, Trump has made it clear that he does not want Somali immigrants. He and Republicans like Gill have called for the deportation of Democratic lawmaker Ilhan Omar to Somalia. His administration not only ended the temporary protected status for Somalian immigrants, but they also launched Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, targeting criminal non-citizens. However, the anti-immigration drive received severe criticism over the use of excessive force by ICE agents. Trump was finally compelled to withdraw 700 federal agents from Minnesota. Well, turning our attention to Japan now, where just a day after Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi won a landslide victory in the general elections, Beijing has warned Tokyo that any reckless moves will be met with a resolute response. And these comments heightened tensions once again.
If the far-right forces in Japan misjudge the situation and act recklessly, they will inevitably face resistance from the Japanese people and a resolute response from the international community.
Markets have been driven by the so-called Takaichi trade, as investors expect her economic policies to boost Japanese economy. Takaichi's victory is seen as a growth-focused continuation for Japan, with plans for looser monetary policy and higher government spending. Takaichi, who is seen as critical of Beijing, led the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, or the LDP, to a 2/3 supermajority in the 465-seat lower house.
been granted an extremely large number of seats. This marks the beginning of a heavy responsibility to make the Japanese archipelago stronger and more prosperous. I feel deeply humbled and keenly aware of the weight of this duty.
After a decisive election victory, Takaichi has promised measures to support households and revive consumption, including tax relief and fiscal support. But with Japan's debt already among the highest in the world, any big spending push risks spooking bond markets and clashing with the existing policy. In November last, Takaichi had suggested that Japan could intervene militarily if Taiwan were attacked. This had heightened tensions between Japan and China claims that Taiwan is part of its own territory and has not ruled out the use of force. Following Takaichi's comments, China advised its citizens to avoid travel to Japan, citing public security risks and criminal acts against Chinese investors. Tensions also escalated in December when Chinese military aircraft reportedly locked radar on Japanese jets, prompting Tokyo to summon Beijing's ambassador. China has also reportedly restricted exports of rare earth materials to Japan, which is critical for industries like EVs and defense systems. Shifting focus now, breathe and focus. The simple act is changing brains. New research shows that meditation doesn't just calm your thoughts, it rewires your mind. What scientists found could change how we think about human potential. Our next report brings you more details on this.
Brain is a restless machine. Its default mode network is chattering endlessly with worries and distractions. Researchers now show meditation can reshape brain activity, literally altering how neurons fire and networks communicate. In controlled studies, people who practiced meditation showed distinct changes in electrical patterns in areas linked to attention, emotion, and self-awareness. The shift starts in minutes. Even short guided sessions can produce measurable effects. The brain doesn't wait for years of practice. It adapts fast. Neuroscientists measured brain waves before and after meditation. They saw increases in alpha and theta rhythms, signals tied to relaxed alertness. These are not random blips. They reflect real functional changes in how the brain processes information. Regions responsible for self-reflection and deep thoughts quiet down. Areas involved in focus and sensory integration light up. Scientists studied monks who were professional meditators from a monastery near Rome. They were averaging more than 15,000 hours of meditation each. The data shows that even short-term practice begins to shrink the amygdala, the brain's fear center, while simultaneously thickening the prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive control and decision-making. However, the depth of this mystery is still unfolding. The brain is the most complex object in the known universe, and it turns out we have the power to reshape it from the inside out. Meditation is no longer a soft science, it is a clinical tool for total neural optimization.
And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas, but we're leaving you with some interesting visuals from across the world. Take a look. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Good night.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power. Only on WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires,